is Chris Hawes.
And I'm Julie Roddy.
And we're here today from the Imam Hussein Islamic Center in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. And we're going to talk about Islam in America.
You know, brother, actually both of us are rather unique in that we both are from European American backgrounds. What was it that actually motivated you to convert to Islam?
Well, I had been a Christian for 30 years, and after kind of a spiritual crisis, I abandoned the faith and was doing a new search. And what happened is what really pushed me into to welcome Islam was actually despair.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's a section in Nietzsche in his Birth of Tragedy, and he quotes from Sophocles' play Oedipus at Colonus. King Midas has finally captured the demigod Silenus, and his quest was really the same as mine. What are we here for? And the demigod was wise, and so he wanted the answer. And the god wouldn't give him one. Midas pressed it and pressed it and pressed it, and finally the god laughs and says, "You really don't want to know this. But since you're asking, I'm going to tell you. The best thing for you is that you not be born. But since you're here, then the best thing is for you to die soon." So as I pondered that, I started thinking, what are we here for? You know, I write poetry, you know that, and I got thinking, what are the odds? What are the actual odds that I'm going to go down in history like Shakespeare? I didn't think that was too likely.
Not too. I think for all of us, that's pretty unlikely.
I didn't think that was too likely. And so I got thinking, well, what is my purpose here? If I'm to try to find purpose in writing, it's kind of futile.
Sure.
So it was, again, through poetry, I ran across the Sufi poet Rumi.
Okay.
And I began to see something in there, and I said, boy, this is not like Islam has been portrayed on the news media.
On the media.
So I investigated more, and eventually came to the point where I found that the simplicity within Islam, the closeness that one can get to God was no different than in Christianity or Buddhism. Well, they don't believe in God, but I mean the same spirituality was there. And so for me, it began to make sense that within my spiritual life, I could find fulfillment in Islam. So a friend got me in touch with some brothers, and I began asking deep questions to get issues resolved. I'm kind of a doctrinal type of person, so so I wanted to get those questions answered. But what really impressed me was how simple and yet deep Islam could be. And so about 1.5 years ago, I said the Shahada and joined the Imam Hussein Center.
Interesting.
And since then, it's been an adventure, really, of getting to the point where I'm comfortable with everybody. I'm comfortable with the faith, and it's kind of odd because you go into the center and it's like everybody speaks a foreign language.
For sure. Our center is very diverse in that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So you find Arabic, you find Farsi, you even find some English.
Yeah.
So,
when we're there, right?
When we're there, yes. And so in that, though, everybody was on an even it was even. Everybody was equal there.
Okay.
And that impressed me, how we're all one there. You know, it didn't matter where you came from. I didn't find that actually so much in the church, unfortunately. There was, you know, economic standings, and there was social standings, and there was, I found it anyway, more of that kind of structure going on that was behind the scenes, but it controlled.
Subtle, but it was there. You understood it was there.
Exactly, and it controlled what was going on. I don't see that at our center. It functions much more in an egalitarian manner. And so I find that refreshing on just a very practical basis. So that's kind of the whole thing. It was that despair that gripped me, and I think actually grips many Americans. The philosophy of the day is existentialism, and that's basically what Nietzsche was saying. There's no purpose here in life. You have to kind of create your own purpose, and then in the big picture, what's that going to mean?
Exactly.
Really nothing. You're going to die and be gone.
Yeah. Don't you feel like also, brother, that really we have to question the purpose of our birth? And actually that's what you're saying, that there is a purpose for us to be born, so we have to make our birth or our existence count for something.
Yes.
And so we need to leave a footprint or a fingerprint or whatever to try and make this world hopefully a little bit better place, because we have been here.
Exactly, exactly. And when that's left up to yourself, the odds aren't real good, considering how many billion of people have lived here and how many billion could be living here, you know, in the future, of putting that footprint.
This is true.
But when you follow the divine leading, which is we're created to worship, and we do that, and we live a life in accordance with divine measures, then you fit in. You become part of the whole that is there.
Okay.
Now, I'm kind of an old duffer, you know, in becoming Muslim, and I understand you became a Muslim at a much, much younger age. So I'm curious, just in looking at that, where you've spent at least, you know, maybe half of your life as a Muslim, what is that like? And what pushed you at that age, when so many people are partying or whatever, pushed you to have a life of faith?
It was actually interesting, because the time for me, actually I've been Muslim for 26 years. So I became Muslim in a time that was completely different than today. It was in the early 80s. It was at a time that a lot of Americans knew nothing about Islam. I knew for myself, I knew nothing about Islam. So when I met some people, they brought me to that. They answered questions, because I did have a curiosity. And actually, at that time in my life, I was searching for something, and I questioned things also. I was questioning, why are the people around me messing up their lives by making wrong decisions? Whether it is too much alcohol, drugs were very prevalent at that time, early 80s. Also, another thing that was out there, you know, promiscuity. I mean, that was really rampant in our society. And I kind of started to say, is this what life is all about? Is this what my future holds for me? Should I continue on this path? And I really started to kind of, you know, take myself away from my friends. I wasn't answering phone calls. I got very busy with 2 jobs. I was working at the university. So actually that allowed me to be in kind of a controlled society, where the university was actually quite diverse at that time. And we did have international students there. And once I started asking questions about Islam, all of a sudden it kind of opened up a new world to me, because I was introduced to another American sister at that time that she had only converted a year before I had met her. And she was married to an Iranian brother at that time. She was American. She was from Texas. She was really my mentor. She took me under her wing, and she was not the pushy kind of person. She was that she was a very gentle mentor, where she answered a lot of my questions, but yet at the same point she didn't push me, because also I think most of us Americans have that stubborn trait. I should maybe speak just for myself.
Yeah. No,
but,
I think you're right.
But, you know, if we are pushed in too much of one direction, we get stubborn and we, you know, stop. But she was just the right mixture for me. And she really took the time, but yet would back off when I kind of felt uncomfortable, or she would sense that I felt uncomfortable. And actually it took me, I would say, probably about 6 months of reading, asking questions, having a good support system around me, because amazingly enough, there were quite a few American women coming to Islam, and especially for myself, working at the university. I met young women that were my age. I was in my mid-20s when I converted. So I wasn't an 18 or 19-year-old, so I had some experience, I think, in the world. I'd gone to school.
Some life experience.
Life experiences, exactly. I wasn't living with my family, so that allowed me to kind of, you know, be independent in my thinking. But also it was interesting because I met, I think for me it was key that I met American sisters. Yes. Because that support system was, sometimes we would be talking about something and say, the same thing happened to me. And so we could relate to each other on the same playing field. Yes. The one thing that was really interesting, the first time that I put on my scarf, and
now this is after you said
this is after
Shahada.
I said the Shahada, that's true. And it took me a while, because I'm also the type of person that doesn't like to draw attention to myself. So all of a sudden I knew that this was going to be an attention getter, you know. So how can I do this and just kind of blend into the background? It's not going to happen. So it took, I would say, more time for me to come to that point. I had accepted the religion. I was learning how to pray. I had my support system intact. It was wonderful, but just that last piece of putting on a hijab. And personally for myself, I knew if I can't do this, then I can't do the religion. Because another piece about myself is that I am, I want to do things right. I want to follow rules. Ask my husband. I follow rules to the T sometimes, and it drives him crazy sometimes. But for me, that's the way I was brought up, and that's the way that I am, and that's my comfort zone. So for me, I knew I needed to feel comfortable wearing hijab to cover my beauty, whatever, with a piece of cloth that I knew was going to get attention. And with this was the first time that I truly, honestly feel that I felt prejudice towards me. And it was kind of eye-opening, because I had never been in that position before. Wow. I had blended in as much as I wanted to. I had friends, I had a good life, but yet at the same point, it wasn't comfortable for me. And so when I decided to become Muslim, I felt a relief, but also, you know, I felt that I needed to do this.
Now, it's interesting that you had said about feeling prejudice, because statistics show that in America, women converts to Islam outnumber men 4-1.
Interesting.
And this is in spite of all of the negative media regarding how Islam is at least perceived to treat women. Mm-hmm. So when you're saying that you felt some kind of prejudice there, do you think, given the situation of Islam in other countries and now coming here to America, do you think women have more opportunities in America to live according to the dictates of Islam, more so here than maybe back home, wherever home is?
Mm-hmm. I think that's very true. And actually, I remember, and this was after I first became Muslim, there was a woman that became a friend of mine, and actually her background, she was from Bangladesh. Because she came to me, and I think also, and I don't know if you went through this, brother, when I first converted to Islam, I assumed all other Muslim brothers and sisters that were born Muslim knew so much more than I did. And I was a little bit intimidated in the beginning because I assumed I knew nothing. I had to start from ground zero and make it up, up to where most Muslims were.
Yeah.
Well, I discovered, this sister told me that when she came to the United States, she actually felt that she learned more about Islam than if she were to stay in her home country of Bangladesh. And it's basically because in Bangladesh, the cultural style of clothing is the see-through scarf, where the little bit of hair in the front is showing. And everyone, all of the Muslims there wear that because that is their cultural dress. Mm. It's the norm in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Well, when she wanted to bring that culture here. She was married, she had children, so she wanted to bring that culture here also. But at the same point, she started looking around and going, what is this? Why are people dressed differently? There's different styles. I thought all Muslims were supposed to dress like this. Well, alhamdulillah, she was a sister that was not shy from asking questions. So she asked people, she says, why do you wear your scarf like this? And she started reading. And one thing led to another. And all of a sudden, she realized that her cultural style of hijab was not actually following Islamic rules.
Oh, interesting.
And she said that when she came here, honestly, she knew, and she was in an environment that allowed her to learn more about Islam than if she was in Bangladesh with her family. And whenever she would go back to Bangladesh to visit her family, they would say, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? No, you don't have to do that. That's too drastic. That's too radical. You don't need to do that. And she said, no, this is true Islam. And brother, I believe in some ways it also allows us, we are American Muslims, we don't have the cultural things that sometimes hold other brothers and sisters back. We know Islam doesn't relate to American culture.
That's for sure.
And isn't it true that when holidays come up or something and we go, well, that doesn't have anything to do with Islam, so we go, that's right.
Exactly.
We don't, or if it comes to a wedding or different activities or different holidays, we don't have that cultural thing to say, okay, we have to get our American culture in there. No, it doesn't relate to Islam. So it allows us to really be independent thinkers.
I think that's true. I know that that for myself, I tend to question all the time. Why do we do this?
It's always a good thing to question all the time. It's always good.
Well, it drives certain people crazy, but I'm always asking, why do we do it this way? Why do we have to do it this way? Where is it written that we have to do it this way?
Exactly.
And the one, I think the one advantage, at least in some ways, is being a man, is that some of the rules are a little looser for men on one level, but on another level they're more stringent.
For sure. For sure.
But it's on the levels that nobody sees really. You know, like
Truly.
being obligated to provide for the family.
Exactly.
For example, nobody sees that really.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And that's more so than American culture here, because
Yes.
American culture here is the man and the woman, depends on their relationship, but it could
Yes.
be that the woman takes care of her own requirements or bills or whatever, and the man will say, yes, I expect my wife to get out there and work.
yes.
So
yes.
that's, it is true. Islamic requirement is completely different in that.
But that's kind of hidden, and you know what we see are what the popular American concept of Islam is. This woman's wrapped up like a mummy, and it's very out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And as you were saying, some of those are very cultural.
Exactly.
I work for Hennepin County, and we have a lot of Somalis who work for the county. And some of them are very Americanized,
For sure.
you know, and others are very traditional in how they dress. And when I look at a traditional Somali woman and how she dresses and compare that with a Bosnian woman or an Iranian woman, there's radical differences here.
Exactly.
And in their own environment, they aren't going to know maybe those differences exist.
Exactly.
Or even if they're aware of them via television or whatever, the culture says this is how you dress.
And the one thing that's interesting about Islam, because I feel like also for us, we are able to, and again, this isn't spoken about or talked about, but women in Islam can find their own style that they feel comfortable with. So you meet different people, especially if you meet American Muslims. Some women will wear the hijab underneath, some will be out, some will be kind of on the side. And it's personal preference. It's you have a certain requirement to follow, but beyond that, you can choose what you feel comfortable in doing. And that's the best part about it. I mean, because not everyone wants to wear like uniforms, like you go to school and everyone dressed the same way. That's not the way that the world is.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want either.
Yeah.
But the best thing to do is to be able to follow the rules and the requirements of Islam, but yet find your own method of dressing that way. And I think that's more and more when people come here, they tell themselves that they are allowed to do different things that maybe they wouldn't be able to do in their country. And I'm hoping some of the Middle Eastern or Islamic countries allow a little bit more independence in that. But actually here, we do have those privileges of asking questions and dressing differently. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get curiosity or people asking us things, but also I think also, and for myself, and I'm sure you think the same way, that it allows us to be asked by non-Muslims because they see us dressed this way. And it's not in a way that's oppressive. And of course, that's the number one question for women. Why is your husband or your father or your brother making you dress this way? And that's not the way that it is. We are basically covering our beauty and dressing in a modest way so that this allows us to be a good part of the community and to express our ideas and show our intelligence. And hopefully people will not think so much about how our hair looks that day or the outfit that we have on, but hopefully they will become more interested in what we have to say.
Yes. And you know, that's significant because I think too often the way the culture is here in America and really the West in a broader sense is women complain about being sex symbols, and yet too often, it seems anyway, how they are culturally pushed to dress reinforces that. And so they're caught in a catch-22 that that a Muslim woman can kind of get free of.
Yeah.
At least that's from my observation anyway.
I think that's very true, because I think some women have the idea that, okay, we don't want to be oppressed, we want to be independent. So because we're independent, we're going to be able to show more skin. Or we will wear this just because we want to wear this. Well, I think also women have to understand that there is a point that if you do this, there's cause and effect.
Yes.
This is the cause. The effect will be men might think that you're a little bit easier. They might come up and put their arm around you or assume that you are a certain kind of woman.
Yes.
And so
when she isn't.
When she isn't. And she's just going, I just want to be independent in how I dress and what I look like, and this is what I am. But you have to understand, you have to take responsibility for how you dress.
Yes.
That, is this going to help the society? Is this going to make the society any cleaner? Is it going to stop any, I mean, women are molested every day. Yeah. I mean, this is unfortunately very, very common in this country, and it's so sad because women, many women that I meet are pure of heart. We are actually different than men in how we think. We're thinking about raising children, making our communities a safe place for women to drive in a car or walk down the street by ourselves, and not have people interfering or making negative comments to us or something. So I think women have to kind of take back their independence and think, you have independence. It doesn't mean that you can't go the opposite way and become more modest in your dress too.
Right. I think that that is a key factor for Islam. I think with women, it's the whole issue of dress really isn't oppressive or suppressing. It's one really that can liberate the inner woman.
Where you have the choice.
Exactly. And on that note, our show for today is over. And we want to thank you all for listening and watching our show, and would like for you, if you have questions, to call the number that's appearing on the screen or send an email, and we'll be more than glad to answer any questions. If you're from a church or an organization and would like for us to speak, give us a call. Also want to give a thanks to our production crew, and we will see you again next time. Peace to you all.